नमस्कार दर्शक मित्रों, थिंकलाइन के आज के नए संस्करण में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करेंगे एस्केलेटिंग टेंशंस इन वेस्ट एशिया, यानी कि इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड में बढ़ते जा रहे टेंशंस की बात करने वाले। मगर इन टेंशन के अंदर भारत का क्या रोल, भारत को क्या हो सकता है, उसकी बात आखिर में करेंगे। मगर ये मुद्दा जो है वो इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड को ज्यादा स्पर्शता है। और जैसे आप देख रहे हैं मेरे साथ डॉक्टर आदित्य जी बैठे हैं, काउंसिल ऑफ स्ट्रेटेजिक अफेयर्स की। जियोपॉलिटिकल बात हो रही है, बात की पूर्व भूमिका मैं देने वाला हूं, छोटी सी। डॉक्टर आदित्य जी, आई वुड लाइक टू स्टार्ट विथ समथिंग, दैट मॉस्को के ऊपर जो रशिया ने कभी सोचा नहीं था इस्लामिक अटैक हुआ। उसके बाद एक कड़ी में आता है सीरिया के अंदर ईरानियन एम्बेसी के बिल्डिंग के अंदर इजराइल ने जाके मारा। ईरान के रेवोल्यूशनरी गार्ड का बड़ा कमांडर उसमें मर गया। जैसे ये कम था, आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा कि सीरिया में रशिया का इन्फ्लुएंस बहुत ज्यादा। ये कम था तो पाकिस्तान के एक ऐसे आतंकवादी ग्रुप ने ईरान में घुसकर मारना शुरू किया। ईरान के दो फ्रंट खुल गए। हम देख रहे हैं पिछले महीने 2 महीनों से बलूचिस्तान में बीएलए ठोकता ही जा रहा है पाकिस्तान आर्मी को। ऊपर से देख रहे हैं तहरीक तालिबान पाकिस्तान, दैट इज ऑल्सो हिटिंग पाकिस्तानी आर्मी। अचानक से चीन के 5 इंजीनियर्स को मार दिया जाता है पाकिस्तान के अंदर, कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं लेता है। चाइना इज ऑल्सो पजल्ड। साथ में बातें ऐसी हो रही है, ग्वादर के ऊपर हमला होता है। चीनी पैसे से बनाया गया एक एंटिटी अमेरिकन को चाहिए। सर ये हो क्या रहा है? द गेम हैज फ्लिप्ड और व्हाट? द ग्रेट गेम जिसको कहते थे, जहां पर लोग बोलते थे अमेरिका तो गया यहां से, हैज इट कम बैक और व्हाट? वो कह रहा है, व्हाट्स हैपनिंग?
Thank you very much indeed, Himanshu ji, for inviting me once again on Thinkline platform. And you have summarized what are the recent happenings, some of the happenings in the world of geopolitical importance. I think we need to keep in mind that they may not be necessarily correlated or interlinked. There are random events happening simultaneously, and it gives a deceptive appearance that they may be interlinked, because the Earth is a big planet with more than 200 countries, each with its own geopolitical issues. So at the same time, there will be numerous conflict at the same time. And sometimes that gives superficial resemblance that these conflicts are interlinked. So let's say start with the terrorist attack in Moscow in a music concert.
Yes.
So after everything is over, yes, there's no doubt that this was a jihadi terrorist attack on Moscow. People who were arrested, they are, I think, from Central Asia region, but Islamists. Yes, people may not think that there could be a jihadi terror attack on Moscow, but this is not the first time. Remember, there was several years ago, there was this Beslan school in which there was a jihadi terrorist attack, I think, by people of Chechen origin. And I think in that, it was kind of mishandled. So I think, if I'm not wrong, 800 people died in that school attack, because I think they counter-terrorist activity involved putting some gas in the school, so children died, and that was a very heart-rending this thing. What I'm trying to say that Moscow is not such a fort that it cannot be attacked by jihadi terrorists, because these people are everywhere. So this is not unusual. What is happening in West Asia? West Asia is in a perpetual forever war. West Asia has not been peaceful for a very long period of time. At any time, there will be 2-3 wars simultaneously going on. So at this point in time, there is Hamas-Israel war going on. There is a war going on in Syria, secessionist war, or a war to overthrow the Syrian government. There's a war going on in Yemen since maybe 2015 onwards, between Houthi rebels that are supported by Iran and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So there are wars always going on in that part of the region. And if you see, prior to that, there was like Iran-Iraq war #1, then Iraq war #2 that was orchestrated by George Bush and the neocons. So that is an area in turmoil, and small incident leads to something big. And I don't think things are going to quieten down at this point in time. But I want to clarify one thing. This narrative that there was an Israeli attack on an embassy building in Damascus, Syria, is not correct. If you look at the happenings, yes, there was an attack on a building, but that was not the embassy building.
Next to the embassy building.
That was next to that. And the Israeli intelligence states that that building had a facade of a civilian building, but it was a headquarters of the Al-Quds force of IRGC, which is Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And who were the people killed? There were, I think, 13 people killed.
Yes.
7 of them were the
commanders of revolutionary
generals of Al-Quds force. 6 were Syrians, and out of those 6 Syrians, there was 1 Hezbollah operative. Al-Quds force is used by IRGC as a liaison military force for quote-unquote Palestinian territories, Yemen, and Syria. So you have to, if you claim that it was a diplomatic kind of embassy or consulate, what were IRGC doing in that? Are they diplomats? Do they have diplomatic immunity? Do Hezbollah operatives have diplomatic immunity? If we see the reality, Islamic regime of Iran has its tentacles in Gaza, you know, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, in West Bank, in Yemen, the Houthi rebels, in Syria, they are supporting the, certain factions there. Of course, they are supporting the president, Bashar al-Assad, because of religious affinity. They are also in Iraq.
In Lebanon, Hezbollah.
Lebanon, Hezbollah. So you have this military power in West Asia that has tentacles and physical, financial, and material support in multiple countries that foment trouble. So if you say that Hamas has right to make a terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th, and if Israel has right to retaliate against, that also includes the targets of backers of Hamas. Hamas is not an independent entity. It's a creation of Islamic Republic of Iran. And Israel has a right to take out any entity, any organization that is promoting attack against Israel. Mind you, Iran is one state that has called for annihilation of the Zionist entity, total destruction. In their communications, the Islamic regime or Islamic Republic of Iran does not even identify the state of Israel by its name because they don't want to give it credibility, so they call it Zionist entity. So the problem there is much wider. At the time of Hamas-Israel war, people had hoped that it will not enlarge into a wider West Asian war, but that was bound to happen. The war between Hamas and Israel has not sorted out because there are still 133 Israeli hostages with Hamas, which Hamas refuses to release, but puts pressure through international agencies, the NGOs, the United Nations on Israel to immediately declare ceasefire. You can have your cake and eat it too. That's the tendency. On the other hand, in Israel, there is a only democratic society in West Asia, and it is alleged that it is in the interest of the Prime Minister Netanyahu to prolong this war to preserve his prime ministership. Because Israel is due for an election. Until the war is going on, there will not be an election. So if the war concludes satisfactorily sooner, Netanyahu is likely to lose his chair as prime minister. One of the interesting aspects of West Asian conflict, more than 15 years ago, in an article I had written, I called it Sushi Strife. Sushi is an acronym. It's not the Japanese delicacy sushi. It is Sunni Shia strife. So West Asian strife is compounded by sushi strife. And there is a war for leadership of the Islamic world. And there are three claimants to it historically. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that houses the two quote unquote holy shrines of Islam. Turkey, that is non-Arab, claimant to the leadership of Islamic world, and Iran, that pretends to be the leader of Islamic world as a Shiite force. So these internecine intra-religious conflicts of Islam manifest from time to time in West Asia. Now, you know that there is some de-radicalization and reform movement going on in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. So as Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is withdrawing its sponsorship of jihadi terrorism, Iran actually is increasing.
But sir, all these things, where does Pakistan fit in? Because Pakistan seems to have gone back to US labs. And it looks like, it is the backing of US which is making Pakistan do certain things which it could not have been doing because it is not in a condition, economic condition, to do any of those things. Now, Al-Badr goes and hits some people in Iran, opens up a two-front for Iran on one side. On the other side, Pakistani army getting, hit badly. And US wanting an airbase in Balochistan. It's a very common thing here, known here. How do you look at it?
If you see Pakistan since its inception in 1947, has tried to project itself as a West Asian entity, not South Asian entity, not part of Indian subcontinent. If you see during the Cold War time, they were part of CENTO, Central Treaty Organization, or so-called Baghdad Pact. They were also part of CATO, but they were also part of CENTO. And Pakistan has tried to de-emphasize its Indian origins and try to assume a fake pseudo-Arabic, pseudo-West Asian identity. Pakistan is rejected by the Arab League as a nation that should be part of the Arab League, but they are part of OIC. Pakistan is a transitional state, has already broken down twice, but in geopolitical terms, it's a rentier state, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Anyone who pays the rent, Pakistan will go to bed with that particular entity, whether it is China or it is United States. So US had lost some interest. It was in bed with China. It's still in bed with China, but China is going through economic turmoil, and China is not going to pay more money into Pakistan through CPEC or whatever, if they have their problems of their own. And Pakistan pretty much every 2-3 years goes out with a begging bowl that we don't have foreign exchange reserve, save us. So they'll go to Middle Eastern or West Asian countries, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, get a $1 billion loan from here and there to save their economy, or go to IMF with a begging bowl. So in the current scenario, the strings were attached that they probably will have to come back into the US fold, because under Imran Khan's prime ministership, they had totally gone with China, and that was not acceptable to United States. And United States engineered the fall of Imran Khan through GHQ. And, Pakistan is back in the good graces of United States. They were given a sustenance package of, I think, almost $600 million for, refurbishing their F-16 squad. And they are getting more help now with United States. Pakistan is essentially a Sunni state. 85% of the population is Sunni. There are rest of them are Shias and very minuscule minorities, Ahmadiyas and Christians and Hindus and Sikhs kind of thing. But predominantly Sunni state. In the past, they have been able to contain the Shia-Sunni strife, but no more. If you see last decades, there are Sunni Shiite, conflicts by various terror groups amongst themselves. So what you are seeing with Iran is Sunni Shia conflict. The terror group that went into Sistan, Balochistan to create strikes was a sort of Sunni group. And that was retaliated by then Iran, that Iran went back into Pakistan and attacked that group's headquarters. Then Pakistan thought that it will get strategic depth with Taliban 2.0. That was a delusion. And now they have created a Frankenstein's monsters on their western or northwestern border. So there's a hot war going on between Taliban-controlled Afghanistan and Pakistan. And people may not realize, when United States left Afghanistan, they left hardware worth more than $85 billion.
Yes.
And that's not going to rot. Somehow or the other, the technicians and engineers will, get passcodes and activate those, armored vehicles and whatever they have. So in terms of warfare capabilities, Taliban are hardened, battle-hardened militant force. And they have essentially dismantled the, the Pakistani Rangers posts on Afghanistan-Pakistan bordered on Durand line that they do not recognize. And it is situation to the extent that Pakistani army forces and Rangers are surrendering without fight to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, or they are abandoning the posts. So this is a separate conflict going on, and situation does not look good for Pakistan on the Afghan front. And in Balochistan, there's an insurgency going on for not 1 year, not 2 years, but for decades.
No, but sir, now they are going on Gwadar. See, Gwadar is supposed to be the CPEC center loaded with Chinese, and Chinese wanted Gwadar.
Chinese
But like this, they are
wanted,
giving a message that we cannot complete Gwadar because there's a lot of insurgency.
Chinese wanted Gwadar as a warm water port in with access to West Asia.
Yes.
So they could actually bypass the Malacca Straits.
Malacca Street.
China has Malacca dilemma, because through CPEC, if they can access the warm water port in Gwadar, they go into Indian Ocean and then into the Gulf of Aden and entire the Suez Canal and do their trade. But again, this is not the first attack on Chinese PLA forces and PLA workers, because China does this thing wherever they go. They bring their own construction workers and their own engineers. They don't give actually employment to locals. That has happened in Africa. That is happening there in Balochistan. And Balochistan people, who were never a willing party to accession to Pakistan, because there was Kalat and Khanate of Balochistan, two Baloch states. They didn't want to join Pakistan. They were forcibly merged with Pakistan. So there has been resistance going on by the BLA, by other forces, and they feel doubly colonized. First by Punjabi-dominated Pakistani army, and now with PLA. Because PLA is there in Balochistan, they are also exploiting the mineral resources in Balochistan. So there is a lot of resentment that their land is taken, their nation is taken, their mineral wealth is exploited, and they don't get jobs. The stupidity was that if China wanted to have facility and exploit the mineral wealth, they should have, quote unquote, bought the Baloch people by giving them jobs and giving them some tangible benefit so that they don't turn against it. But in their, mercantile attitude, they want to, sort of, tap it to the maximum extent. They are milking the Baloch cow to the maximum without giving the Baloch calf some milk to drink. So that is creating problems for not only China, but between China and Pakistan, because China is very angry with Pakistan for not being able to provide security. In fact, one of the generals was dispatched to Beijing to explain why this is happening. So this is an interesting scenario. These are the wages of the sins of colonization.
But sir, now what happens to entity called Pakistan? Till now, they had only one front, which is India. Now, they are open on three fronts. On one side, they have Iran. On the other side, you have another Islamic brother, Afghanistan. And even Chinese are angry. What do you foresee?
And they have a domestic front.
Domestic front to hai.
Or it is a pseudo-domestic front. They have a internal resistance and a war going on in Balochistan. And of course, they don't have good relations with Bharat anyhow. So let me be very frank. There was an entity called Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Where is FRY now? It's not on the map. 1947, 1946, Pakistan was not on the map. The map of Pakistan changed in 1971. And I'm pretty sure more cartographic changes are going to come. As to when this will happen, I'm not going to predict. but I'm very confident there will be cartographic changes in Indian subcontinent.
Sir, you are saying cartographic changes in Indian subcontinent. सीधी बात में सर बता रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान का नक्शा बदलने वाला, कब बदलेगा वो प्रेडिक्ट नहीं करते। यहां पर मेरा सबसे अहम सवाल आता है आज की टॉक, द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एंड द मूड क्वेश्चन। वी नो हु इज बिहाइंड ऑल दिस थिंग्स, क्योंकि लाइक अ हिंदी फिल्मी डायलॉग, लिक्विड ऑक्सीजन पे रखेंगे, ऑक्सीजन मरने नहीं देगा, लिक्विड जीने नहीं देगा। एंड दैट इज व्हाट यूएस सीम्स टू बी डूइंग विद पाकिस्तान, गिविंग देम डोल्स बाय मींस things, when it comes to IMF also gives something, just enough to keep them alive. And on the other side, see the fun, sir. This is where Indian public is highly irritated. Where India comes in is here, because they are treating Pakistan with kid gloves, keeping them alive on one side and poking India continuously. That's their state policy. And that is where Bharat comes in. Now, sir, your take on this.
Pakistan is an artificial transitional state created by the Western colonial powers. And I'm not going to mention one state, but it is a conglomeration of states. And those states since 1947 have supported Pakistan in its entirety against India. The British colonialists felt that they could not control India after transfer of power, so they needed a place where they could have a foothold to continue with their policies. And as a successor to British imperialism, the next superpower was United States, which took the same mental and took the same attitude and mentality. So despite superficial banhami between Bharat and United States at this point in time, and the rhetoric of the largest democracy and the oldest democracy and other blah, 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 and natural allies, the geopolitical interests of Bharat do not align with that of United States. There may be some commonalities vis-a-vis China, Chinese hegemony and Chinese expansionism, but in all other areas, United States has tried to contain rise of Bharat, as it would do with the rise of China or with rise of any other emerging superpower. The role of a superpower or the job of a superpower is to keep itself as the only superpower that United States knows very well. So they have this entity called Pakistan, which they have to continue to preserve for their imperialistic goals. So there is a convergence there between Chinese aims and US aims. Both want preservation of this artificial transitional state called Pakistan for their geopolitical aims. And they may succeed for a while. Something happened to Pakistan in 1971, despite United States, despite China. Something is going to happen to the state called Pakistan in near future. And again, I'm not going to predict that because it's an artificially contrived notion. Islam does not give sense of nationhood. If Islam gave the sense of nationhood, why would there be war between Iraq and Iran? Why would there be war between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the Houthi-controlled Yemen? Why there would be war between Syrian government and Syrian Sunni rebel groups? Why there would be war between the Turkish government and Kurdish rebel groups, because both are Islamic. So you have why there is Iran-Iraq war or hostility, why there was a war between Iraq and Kuwait. Islam is not the binding force of nationhood. Nationhood is very different from religious affiliation. That's why you are having wars between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Because the sense of nationhood of the Pakhtun people is leading to this. So Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, for all practical purposes, will go with Afghanistan. That's already happening. The Durand Line, the Pakistani Rangers, posts are being dismantled, and Pakistani army either is abandoning the posts or they are surrendering to Afghanistan forces. So that is happening there. It will be only till some point that Baluch resistance gains strength enough to repel the Punjabi controlled Pakistani army. Yes, there is an asymmetry. What you're seeing is asymmetrical warfare, but there was an asymmetrical warfare in Vietnam also. Who won? The occupying force did not win. So occupying force in Balochistan will not win. There is resurgence of Sindhi nationalism in the province of Sindh. And GS and the movement keeps on getting, from time to time, visibility. So in all practical purposes, it's an artificially contrived state like Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. And as Federal Republic of Yugoslavia disappeared, as Czechoslovakia disappeared, there will be cartographic changes in the region that we know as Pakistan at this point in time. And any superpower will not be able to control that process.
दर्शक मित्रों, बहुत स्पष्ट तरीके से डॉक्टर आदित्य जी ने बता दिया है। पाकिस्तान का नक्शा तो बदलने वाला है। कब वो प्रेडिक्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम सब उत्सुक होते हैं कब होगा ये। साल 2 साल से हम लोग हर किसी को पूछ रहे हैं कब होगा, कब होगा, कब होगा। दिखता नहीं है। मगर इन्होंने एक बात दूसरी बहुत बड़ी कह दी, इस्लाम बाइंडिंग फोर्स नहीं है, राष्ट्रों को एकजुट रखें। राष्ट्रीयता कुछ अलग चीज होती है, और अगर इस्लाम बाइंड करता होता इन सब राष्ट्रों को तो अफगानिस्तान, पाकिस्तान ईरान नहीं लड़ते। बात को समझना पड़ेगा। दर्शक मित्रों, कार्यक्रम का अंत करने से पहले मैं आपको एक गुजारिश करना चाहूंगा, प्लीज लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब अवर वीडियो। आपको हमारा QR कोड भी मिलेगा, अब साथ में हमारा फोन पे नंबर भी मिलेगा। अगर आप चाहते हैं कि हम ज्यादा ग्रो हो तो प्लीज हमें थोड़ा सा सहयोग कीजिए। आपका थोड़ा सा सहयोग हमें इस चैनल को बिल्डअप करने में बहुत काम आएगा, क्योंकि टेक्निकली हमें बहुत काम करना बाकी है। हम आप तक आ तो रहे हैं, मगर 2 बारी हमने प्रयत्न किया लाइव में आने का, नहीं हो सका। शायद कुछ टेक्निकल वजह है, उसे हम सॉर्ट आउट करना चाहेंगे। हम आपसे माफी चाहते हैं कि आज भी हम आपसे लाइव नहीं जोड़ पाए, तो आपके सवाल नहीं दे पाए, मगर हम आपको प्रॉमिस करते हैं जितना जल्दी हो सके उतना हम ये सेटअप कर देंगे और आपसे बात करेंगे। आदित्यन जी, बिफोर वी वाइंड अप, डू यू फोरसी a lasting friendship between US and India? ये मेरा अंतिम सवाल है। Give me a short reply and people will understand, because people are not enthusiastic about US now in Bharat, as we say.
The answer depends how you define friendship. I have in one of my writings said that India-US relationship is like a part-time lover. We have some commonalities. We can work on that. We have some commonalities with China, let's say in climate control. But in other areas, we have differences. US is a superpower. US wants to behave like a superpower with every country. And they have what is called doctrine of American exceptionalism. And 2 years ago, I wrote an article on doctrine of Indian exceptionalism. India is a highly independent, highly opinionated country, irrespective of the fact whoever is ruling party. As a nation, India will maintain her strategic independence, come what may. And that may not be acceptable to United States, because United States is always looking for what we call in geopolitics, client states or vassal states. and India will never ever serve as vassal state of United States.
दर्शक मित्रों, बहुत स्पष्ट तरीके से बताया है डॉक्टर साहब ने ओहायो में बैठ के कि दोनों की ज्यादा लंबी नहीं निभ सकती। यह पार्ट टाइम लव अफेयर है, थोड़ा वक्त चलेगा, थोड़ा वक्त गर्म चलेगा, थोड़ा वक्त ठंडा चलेगा, फिर से शायद कभी थोड़ा वक्त गर्म हो सकता है। मगर आज जो बात निकल के आई है वो समझ सकते हैं आप एक ही चीज, धर्म राष्ट्रों को बांध नहीं सकता, ये सबसे बड़ी बात है। और वेस्ट एशिया का जो एस्केलेशन, दैट एस्केलेशन हम लोगों के लिए तो काफी अच्छा है। वी नीड टू कीप क्वाइट, सिट, वॉच like a movie that is unfolding in front of you with the popcorn and the juice. मित्रों, फिर से जाने से पहले डॉक्टर साहब का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। एंड आपको छोटी सी गुजारिश, प्लीज लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब एंड कंट्रीब्यूट टू अवर कॉज इफ यू कैन। नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।